powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Now, live from inside the Matt Black Kia Studios, it's Football at 4.
Football at 4 is powered by the Inside the Birds podcast, and of course it's brought to you by the Gallery Bar Book and Games at Ocean Casino Resort. This Sunday, watch the Eagles and Niners and cheer on your favorite team. Go to the Gallery at Ocean. Go for the win. For more info, visit theoceanac.com. Must be 21 or older to play. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. It is the Sports Bash Live 97.3 ESPN. I told you earlier, Bengals this morning were 1. That is up to 2.5 now. By the time I'm done talking to Adam Caplan, that thing could be up to 3. I'll let you know. Eagles are still 2.5 against the Niners. We're breaking it all down. Football at 4. Adam Caplan is here. Eagles, Niners, NFC Championship game, 7th time. The Eagles are in the championship game since the year 2000. This has been the best team in the NFC, Adam. They're back again.
Yeah, they're number 1 seed, and it is interesting, Mike, when you look at the Eagles' history, and I'm so old, I remember the 1980 season as a kid at Penn Charter. It was a private school here in Philly where Matt Ryan went and Ruben Amaro Jr. and others. I just remember being so in awe of the fact that the Eagles were playing the Raiders in the Super Bowl and the championship game, blowing out the Cowboys as they did. The week before that, the Vikings game. And here we are, technically 43 years later. And this is actually, to me, Mike, I believe this is the best roster that I've seen, not only covering the Eagles. The 04 season, the 05 Super Bowl, the roster is very good. But the starting 22, Mike, it's hard to imagine there's been a better team that I've covered and that I could remember. I'm sure if I took my time going through, okay, maybe this team was better in that position. But you add up all starting 22, Mike, this is a hell of a roster. And they certainly showed it once again against the Giants.
All right, I want to play a bite for you and see if you agree with this.
Okay.
Philly is a much better team than the San Francisco 49ers.
Yeah. All right, that is Marcus Spears on
Marcus
Get Up this
Spears,
morning.
Yeah.
Philadelphia
Marcus
is a much better team than San Francisco. Is he off base?
I don't agree with that. I know Marcus. I don't know him, but I know his work, and I know he was doing a lot of college football. He's on the NFL side now at ESPN, and I actually saw the clip. Marcus speaks with a lot of passion, but I know today I'll be with you tomorrow, Mike. I'm not going to make my pick till Friday on our Inside the Bird show, our preview show. I got to tell you, I'm having a real hard time picking either side. It's so tight. It's so even. Because the point spread now is, what is it, 2.5? Is the point spread, something like that?
Yep, 2.5. 2.5 in the Philadelphia game, 2.5 Bengals Chiefs.
Right, and the Bengals are the favorite now, right? Aren't they 2.5?
Oh yeah, it was 1 this morning. It's up to 2.5 now. I mean, that's
crazy. It opened up as the Chiefs a 2.5-point favorite because people know that Mahomes has a high ankle sprain. Even if it's a mild one, he's not going to be close to 100%. And he looked very hobbled in the second half of that game. But getting back to the Eagles situation, what Marcus Spears said, if you want to say there's a clear separation at quarterback, that's obvious. But if you just go position by position, Mike, it's pretty even. And they don't play the same defense, and their philosophy is different. The Niners are a way more balanced team than the Eagles. The Eagles typically, with rare exception, the Packer game, this past game, but the reasons for it, the Eagles generally want to come out throwing, not running, and sometimes circumstances dictate it in terms of what they see. But this game, Mike, was just something like I just kind of blown away with what I saw. I've been talking to people this morning who graded the tape for us, who we know who watched the tape. We kind of all saw the same thing, whether you saw the TV copy or saw the all 22. You just don't see this. This is not college football. You don't see teams blowing another team off the football. It was something pretty cool. I got kind of a chuckle. Seeing these holes, I mentioned on our show that dropped on Monday. No, our postgame show with Trey Thomas. Like, I could see this already, that there were huge holes. You don't see this in the NFL, Mike. You just don't.
Yeah, I read a stat, Adam. Jeff was on yesterday, and he said you were calling them college holes. And I read a stat that the Eagles ran the ball 44 times. 3 times they got hit behind the line of scrimmage. The average yards per carry before contact was made was 4.3 yards. Before contact was made. That's how dominant the Eagles were running ball. That's not going to be the case this week.
Well, now understand. Okay, understand. You're getting the ball 2 yards behind the line, and then they're not getting hit past 2 or 3 yards. It's not like, okay, they're getting the ball at the line of scrimmage, they're not getting hit for 4.3 yards. That can't be right. Like that wouldn't make sense, but the former would make sense. They're getting the ball a yard and a half, 2.5 yards before the line of scrimmage, and they're getting past. Though that's not good that they're still not getting hit for over 4 yards. That's ridiculous. Like, you don't hear about stats like that. It was similar to the Green Bay game. Now, Green Bay, the difference between this Green Bay game, the Giants game, and Green Bay game. Green Bay, I was told, were so misaligned. Their linebackers were misaligned, and they missed so many tackles. They just had a poor effort. I think, Mike, here, this is just my sense from talking to people. I think the Giants were gassed from the game before against. They were just out of it. Super emotional game against Minnesota, and they didn't have it. Kind of like, ironically, in the NFC Championship game when Minnesota played the Minneapolis Miracle, I talked to two people who were at the Vikings at the time, so they just didn't have it. And ironically, same score, 38-7, right?
On the same day.
Yeah. How's that even? So, I don't know about omens or portent of things to come, but it's just kind of crazy sometimes with how things happen.
You mentioned the offensive line dominant. I thought, Adam, on top of the dominance, I want to even go to a more micro level here. Kelsey, Dickerson, Seumalo. I thought those three guys absolutely won the game. I mean, their ability
and Lane Johnson, by the way, and I know there's some stats out there. They're actually true. Sometimes you could shoot holes in analytic stats because they're not factual based on the coaches or people working with these players. But they're right. Lane Johnson, and I know from what we understand, the first quarter for him was a little bit of a struggle physically, trying to figure out how to play with this torn adductor tendon. We actually had this note in our pregame show. I had it that he had found a way through practice to somehow manipulate his body to get through this. But as I said, I'll see it when I believe it. Now I believe it. That's why I wanted to pick them to blow out the Giants, but I couldn't do it because I didn't know how long Lane would last. I don't know what, and I don't know if he took pain medication I have no idea. But what he did simply was incredible. And you're right, Mike. As a 5-man unit, and by the way, also with that 5-man unit, Jason Kelsey is a coaching term, looking for work. He seemed like he's having such a good time right now. He just turned 35 in November. I know the Eagles will take him back in a minute if he wants to play. How the hell could he not want to come back now? If they win the Super Bowl, maybe he says, guys, let me go out on top here. I got my second ring. Why do I really need to play? He doesn't need the money, clearly.
Right.
But I'm in total awe of what they did. Moshe and I are totally called down the middle. We're not Eagles fans. It's great for our business. Inside the Birds is a business. We're all in the Eagles business, so it's great. But I just was in total awe of what they did Saturday night. Yeah, I was like, this is ridiculously great what they just did here.
Yeah, I mean, and I mentioned the three guys inside. I mean, what you can do with Kelsey, but then Dickerson just dominates at the point.
Yeah.
They run between the guard centers. I mean, you see teams that want to run between the tackles. These guys run it straight up the middle on you because they're so good in there. And it'll be interesting to see. San Francisco is very good against the run, but if they've seen an offensive line that can do what the Eagles can do in the middle, you saw the tape against the Giants. They dominated the Giants in the interior.
Yeah, let me give you 3 notes on this. So one thing we should mention more of, Seumalo, Johnson, Kelsey, and Mailata are now started 3 years. If you don't think that means something, you just don't get football, people. This is huge. Shame on me for not mentioning before. Someone gave that to me over the weekend. I go, it's so simple. I got to use that. Thank you. And it goes, Dickerson. This is Dickerson's second year with this unit. And he's improved. Now, I don't think he's as good as a pass blocker from what I'm told, but he made the Pro Bowl, whether he deserved it or not, he made it.
It's hard in your second year, by the way. I mean, it's usually a name recognition thing.
Sure, exactly. Right, no, that's a fair point. But it is crazy what they're doing now. And Isaac Seumalo is such a good player. I understand Juergens has to start next year at guard or center. If Kelsey's coming back, he's got to start at guard. I would.
Yeah, you got, by the way, Seumalo free agent at the end of the year.
But at this is so good. He's on that almost Pro Bowl level. It's like one rung below. He's just a solid, good football player.
Yeah.
But as one person with Eagles told me, Lane Johnson has one bad play every 5 games. Isaac might have one or two bad per game, or maybe every other game. That's why he's not a Pro Bowler. But he's a really good football player, Mike. I'm glad you brought up the interior. They absolutely dominated.
Yeah, and as we took a look at, the pass protection, Lane Johnson with the torn adductor, and then Jalen Hurts. Let's take a look at him, because here we are having this conversation. Last week it was all about Hurts. Anything on Hurts? How did he get out of that game in terms of that shoulder?
Good. I mean, from what I've heard so far, so good. They never technically got credit. The Giants never got credit really with a hit on him. It's weird. They had a sack, but I think I can't remember how it happened. It was not I don't think it was a natural sack, but nevertheless, he was fine. He was solid. His arm strength was fine. In fact, the shot play on the first series, it's funny. I was trying to guess who it would be to. I thought it would be to A.J. Brown, but it was to Smith, and what a great route he ran. He had a great game, by the way. Devontae Smith, I'm just another guy I'm total awe of. I know the guy's a former Heisman Trophy winner, so he obviously had to be a great college football player, but he's already arrived. Mike, he's already like one of the top 20 receivers in the NFL from a production and talent and performance standpoint. So when you go to this game, we'll talk more about this tomorrow. We'll get a little bit into the matchups tomorrow. When you look at this situation, if you're because the Niners are mostly zone, a little bit of man, but mostly zone, they're going to find ways to exploit their zone defense. They're more of the old Seattle cover 3 with a couple other coverages mixed in, but they're going to find it. I know the Niners are great defense. They're arguably the NFL's best defense, but I have such a high level of trust in this coaching staff, Mike, they'll figure out ways to get it.
They're one of the best defenses, but Adam Caplan, in one area, they have a deficiency. They give up the deep ball. They are 27th in the league on passes of 20 or more yards. You know who's number 1 in 20 or more yard passes? The Philadelphia offense. So can Philadelphia, they took shots down the field last week against the Giants. Is that something that you think they could do against San Francisco? The numbers say they can.
Yeah, and in fact, Diamador Lenore is the guy. Now, I know he's improved this season. He struggled last year. The Eagles actually went after him last year on that Quez Watkins 91-yarder from Hurts. Yeah, that's the guy you're going to target. Now, Charvarius Ward actually has had a really good year. He's kind of rebounded from Dallas and the Chiefs, and Chiefs really didn't want him back. And they didn't make much of an effort to bring him back, and he has done a really good job. But, yes, they will give up big plays. Their safeties are good. Hufanga's been an incredible breakout player. I don't want to say he came out of nowhere. I know he had some injury issues in college, but he's a good football player. He's been a Pro Bowler. But, yeah, that's the way. If you can protect. Now, Nick Bosa's going to – now, I know they flip him. They'll flip-flop him. But he'll play more on Lane Johnson's side. They don't play on the other side. So they got to be able to protect. And this is going to be a big challenge for Jeff Stoutland and his group of coaches.
All right, look at the defense. I thought Reddick, he took Evan Neal's lunch money and then stuffed him into a locker.
Again.
Right?
Again.
And then stuffed him into the locker. Yeah. McGlinchey this weekend, how's that matchup there? Because he dominated last week.
Yeah, McGlinchey is an up-and-down player. He's not a great athlete. He's a power player, not as good as pass pro, former Penn Charter guy, by the way.
Local guy, yeah.
Yep. In fact, I met Mike. We were actually reminiscing about that, see if he had the same teachers I had. Not quite. Several decades later. Nice guy. Yeah, he's a grinder. He's an okay athlete. He's a very good run blocker. That's one where, the Eagles will find a way to get it done against McGlinchey with Reddick, who's been incredible. What a signing. $15 million a year. People, it's funny. People were killing Reddick for his coverage skills last year because it was true. He's not very good in coverage. They didn't sign him to be a coverage player, people. He's not been a liability. Some tight ends have gotten him, but they haven't. Tight ends have not killed the Eagles like they have in the past, except for this, though. The guy that's 19 for 19 against the Eagles is George Kittle, 15-4. He's caught every target against them the last 2 times. So that, to me, that worries me because by the way, if you think the Eagles are super deep at pass targets, the Niners are actually deeper.
Josh Sweat, last week he has Andrew Thomas. This week, Trent Williams. Is Josh Sweat, how did he –
tough.
Yeah, how did he play last week?
He'll play inside.
Yeah.
They'll move him. They don't just line him up in one place. The coaches do a great job. And the other thing is, Mike, we don't talk about enough because I know the Eagles technically by stats don't do it a lot. but their stunt percentage is up a little bit, and they are one of the best stunting teams by percentage. Their success rate is really good. They're just really good at it, Mike. The stunts are old school. They've been around forever in the National Football League, and the Eagles are one of the better stunting teams. And I know that you can't do it a lot because you don't want to be so predictable, but because the way you beat the Niners are not super good. They're okay in the interior. They're not like they are at tackle. But to me, Mike, if I'm the Eagles, I'm going to keep those stunts up. The guys you got to go for now. Aaron Banks is pretty good. Their second rounder last year. Jake Brendel, who's been around forever. He's a 30-year-old journeyman center, kind of revived his career as a starter. And Burford, who's a fourth rounder this year. Those are the kind of guys you want to stun at because they don't have the experience. It's going to be tough, though. I got to tell you, I don't see this being a high-scoring game. Some people do. I don't, unless there are a bunch of turnovers. Great defenses, the two best coaching staff. This is a hard one, man. I got to tell you, I don't know which way I'm going. I need more information. This is hard.
Let's ask this real fast. Last week, the Eagles' run game, how did it stack up when, Saquon Barkley, they wanted to try to run the ball? When it mattered, it looked like the Eagles' run defense. Can they hold up?
They shut them down.
Yeah. Can they hold up, though, against Mitchell, McCaffrey, and even Deebo Samuel gets carries?
Well, I got to tell you, boy, the Cowboys shocked me how the run defense isn't very good. They shut down McCaffrey in the run game. He didn't do anything. Elijah Mitchell is really weird. Like he's their closing running back. He's too small. They didn't run the ball well at all. Mitchell ran for 51 on the 3.6 yards per carry. McCaffrey, just watching it, he just didn't have the holes there. And Samuel didn't have any big plays. Brock Purdy had a couple scrambles, but no, I'm not worried about so much the Niners run game. It's the pass game. I know that they're controlled. They're a big balance team. That's what Kyle Shanahan believes. But it's the multi-formational. It's the 21 personnel. They use Kyle Juszczyk more than any other fullback. It's funny. Juszczyk is a pretty good athlete. He's a former tight end out of Harvard. I met Kyle at the Senior Bowl many years ago. He's the highest paid fullback in NFL history. He's a pretty good athlete, but he's a superior blocker. I'd have to go back and look. I'll probably look this up for tomorrow, Mike. I don't know how many fullbacks they face this season. In fact, this is different from any other offense they face this season.
Yeah. By the way, I have a conversation with Colin Thompson on Believe in the Eagles podcast, if you want to check that out, because he talked about how they use, because he played against San Francisco this year. Carolina played them, so we saw a lot of film on how they use their fullback, which there's only a handful of fullbacks. You're right. I don't know how many the Eagles face. So there you go. A little bit of what the Eagles did last week. McCaffrey, by the way, calf injury, and Mitchell groin. Dickerson with a little ankle, and Avonte Maddox. What about his status?
Oh, yeah. So Maddox, look, we've been kind of on this since it happened. The Super Bowl is where I think there might be possibility, just because they, as we said 4 weeks ago, they made a decision not to put him on IR. Won't sure how they note the procedure. We'll get a better idea. If he's able to go out there and run this week, we'll be able to put a timeline on it, but it's impossible to do until he's running in practice. But what Sirianni said yesterday is actually the truth. I know sometimes he doesn't want to give out a lot of information. You can't really evaluate it because he has got to be able to stick that surgically repaired toe in the ground and move off it, run, stop, and start. It's no different than a receiver. Remember, he's mirroring receivers with their mirror match coverage. He's got to be able to do everything, twist and start and stop. So until he does it, Mike, you just don't know. But, then Landon Dickerson did twist his ankle there. He came back, though. He should be good to go. I know A.J. Brown hurt his leg. We'll see how they list it tomorrow when you and I do the segment. But he'll play. But they're going to, other than Maddox, I mean, they're pretty much good to go.
And Chauncey Gardner-Johnson's done a nice job in the slot, and Blankenship has kind of eased into his role now too.
Yeah, he's been a great find as an undrafted free agent. We had this note. It's kind of like one of our first note for a roster. I think we might have said it first or second week of August. We said this guy's making the team. This is how much in love the coaches are on defense. I'm a little surprised because he's not a great athlete. That's why he wasn't drafted. But he seems to always be in the right place, and he diagnoses and he anticipates where the ball's going. It's working. I wish they get more turnovers, though. Because Gardner-Johnson's now he's their slot corner. He's not able to make the big plays at safety, and that's why they're not getting the turnovers.
And that's what I said, Adam. Blankenship's not losing you the game because he's making mistakes, but he's also not making plays to help you win. He's just doing his job. Gardner Johnson's making plays to help you win the game because he's getting interceptions, he's making hits. That's really the difference.
Right, and here's the story, Mike. They don't want Josiah Scott out there. That's why they're doing this.
Yeah,
or they would go with it.
If Maddox is back, does he go to the slot and Gardner Johnson back?
Oh, yeah. Now, it depends if they ease him back because he's 75% and they think he could play, but not. We just don't know enough yet on where he's at and what he can do. They won't know until he goes out there. This is different from Hurts' shoulder injury. This is actual surgery, something on his toe, and he's got to test it. We just don't know enough about where he's at and whether he can run yet.
All right, Adam Caplan, Football at 4. Check out the Inside the Birds podcast and the pregame show and all their content on their social media platforms. Adam's back tomorrow. We'll get our hands dirty a little bit more on the matchups. And don't forget to check out the Inside the Birds podcast with Adam and Jeff during Football at 4. They're back tomorrow right here on the Sports Bash. Thank you, Adam.
All right, Mike.
All right, Adam Caplan is here on the Sports Bash tomorrow.